In a quiet valley surrounded by silent mountains, there lived a young man named Eien. Since childhood, he had heard the elders of the temple speak of inner peace as if it were a hidden treasure. However, no matter how much he closed his eyes and took deep breaths, all he found within himself was noise. Thoughts, doubts, desires, fears. One day, Eien decided to set out in search of peace. He packed dry rice, a wooden bowl, and an old tunic inherited from his father. He traveled through villages, spoke with wise men, meditated by waterfalls, and listened to the wind's song. But each time he thought he had found it, in a word, in a view, in a moment, the peace vanished like a drop of dew under the sun. After years of searching, Eien arrived at a temple hidden among the pines, where an elderly Zen master lived. The master was sweeping the garden when Eien bowed deeply and said, "I have walked endless paths in search of peace, master. Can you tell me where to find it?" The master stopped sweeping, looked at him, and smiled gently. Without saying a word, he pointed toward a pond filled with floating leaves. "Look," he finally said, "observe the water." Eien leaned over the pond and saw his own face, distorted by the ripples of the wind. The master placed a stone in the center of the water. The ripples slowly expanded until everything returned to calm. "What do you see now?" asked the master. Eien answered, "My reflection, clear." The master nodded. "Peace is like still water. It was always there. You just have to wait for the wind inside you to stop." Eien remained silent, gazing at his calm reflection. Something inside him stirred, not like a loud revelation, but like a whisper that could barely be heard. He spent the night at the temple, sitting under a plum tree. The master did not speak to him again. He only offered him a bowl of hot soup and a blanket woven with threads of silence. The next day, Eien watched the master do the same things as the day before. Sweeping, pruning the plants, feeding the birds that came every morning. Nothing grand, nothing spectacular. "Master," Eien asked as they both gathered dry leaves, "don't you meditate for hours like other monks?" "No," the old man replied without stopping his sweeping. "I sweep, and when I sweep, I only sweep." Eien frowned. "And is that enough to find peace?" The master set the broom aside and looked at him with a sweetness that seemed to wrap him completely. "Peace is not found. It is revealed when you stop searching for it. When you do things with a still heart, peace appears, because it was never gone." The young man did not know how to respond. For the first time, he didn't feel the need to have an answer. He just stayed there, watching how the wind gently moved the leaves, without noise, without urgency. And for a moment, just a moment, inside him everything was at peace. Eien decided to stay at the temple for a few days. There were no special ceremonies, nor teachings pronounced from the top of a mountain. Just silence, simple tasks, and the company of natural sounds. The creaking of branches, the murmur of the stream, the distant echo of a solitary bird. Every morning, the master assigned him a different task: grinding rice, chopping firewood, drawing water from the well. At first, Eien did it hoping to gain wisdom in return. But after a week, something in his attitude began to shift. One day, while washing a bowl by the river, he realized that his mind was no longer chasing thoughts as it had before. He wasn't thinking about his past, nor worrying about his future. He was just there, with the cold water between his fingers and the sound of the river filling the moment. That night, as he drank tea with the master, he said, "Today I didn't feel anxiety, nor sadness, nor desire. I was just doing. Is that peace?" The master nodded slowly. "That's it. When you stop fighting against what is, peace arises like the aroma of tea. Effortlessly, without intention, simply because the water is hot and the leaves have been left to freedom. Eien lowered his gaze to the steam rising from his cup. For the first time, he understood that peace wasn't a destination. It was a way of being, and that way began within him. Eien began waking up before dawn, not because he was told to, but because his heart desired it. He walked barefoot through the dew-covered garden, feeling the earth beneath his feet as if it were the first time. He had stopped asking questions. He no longer expected the master to give him a magical answer, nor did he seek hidden signs in the sky. Every gesture, no matter how simple, had become profound. Lighting the fire, folding a blanket, opening the door to let the breeze in. One day, while collecting fallen branches, he stopped and looked toward the mountains that bordered the valley. The sun was beginning to filter through the clouds, and the landscape was bathed in a soft light, as if the entire world were breathing in silence. I've been to many places searching for this, he thought, and all the time, it was within me. The master appeared beside him, as if he had read his thoughts. Most people seek peace as one seeks a precious stone in the sand, he said in a measured voice. But peace is not found. Peace is remembered. Eien closed his eyes, and he remembered, not a specific moment, nor an exact teaching. He remembered the taste of being present, the emptiness full of meaning that lived in the center of his chest. And in that emptiness he rested. As the days passed, Eien began to understand that true learning did not come from accumulating knowledge, but from letting go. Each day was an opportunity to release. An unnecessary thought, an expectation, an old wound. One morning, while scrubbing the temple steps, the master approached and offered him a cup of water. "What do you see here?" he asked. "Water," Eien replied, somewhat confused. The master slowly tipped the cup over the stone. "And now?" "Nothing. The cup is empty." The old man smiled. "Now it can be filled with something new." Eien lowered his gaze, finally understanding. For years, he had tried to fill himself with answers, experiences, the words of others. But his inner self had been so full of noise and expectations. There had been no space for peace to bloom. "Empty myself," he whispered. "Exactly," the master nodded. "When you are full of searching, you cannot receive. But when you empty yourself, peace finds you." Eien didn't respond. He simply felt a warm tear run down his cheek. Not from sadness, from relief. And in that moment, he didn't need to know anything else. As winter arrived, the snow began to slowly cover the paths and rooftops of the temple. The silence of the valley grew even deeper, as if the entire world were in meditation. Eien spent his mornings gathering firewood with cold hands, and his nights by the fire, listening to the crackle of the embers. He no longer thought about when he would leave. He didn't even wonder if he should stay. He was simply there, like the snow that falls effortlessly, without a plan. One night, while sharing hot rice with the master, he asked, "And what if one day I stray from this peace? What if the noise returns?" The master looked at him with compassion. "The noise is not your enemy. It is simply the reminder that you have forgotten who you are." "And who am I?" Eien asked, his voice serene. The old man let out a soft laugh. "You are the one who observes, the one behind the noise. You are the sky, not the clouds." Eien placed the spoon back in the bowl and closed his eyes. Yes, he was not his thoughts. He was not his emotions. He was not his story. He was the space where all that appeared and disappeared. And that space, always at peace, was his true home. Spring arrived unannounced. The plum trees bloomed, the ice slowly melted, and the song of the birds once again filled the air. Eien remained at the temple, but something in him had changed profoundly. One day, while sweeping the garden leaves, Just as the master had done when they first met, a young traveler arrived at the temple. His face showed weariness, and his eyes held a search that Eien recognized instantly. "I have traveled long distances seeking peace," the young man said. "Is it here?" Eien looked at him with tenderness. He did not respond immediately. Instead, he handed him the broom. "Help me sweep," he said. The young man hesitated, but took the broom and began to move it clumsily. The sound of dry leaves filled the air. For a long while they said nothing. They just swept, step by step, in silence. When they were done, Eien spoke softly. "Peace is not found in places, nor in people, nor in words. Peace blooms when you stop running and stay with yourself, here, now." The young man nodded slowly, not understanding why a tear was welling up in his chest. Eien smiled at him, recognizing that moment. He too had once cried when he stopped searching. Eien became, without intending to, the new guardian of the temple. Not as a master, not as a guide, but as a present human being. He cared for the garden, prepared the tea, listened attentively, and taught without teaching. Sometimes travelers arrived laden with questions. Eien greeted them with a smile and a silence that spoke more than 1,000 words. He showed them how to chop firewood, how to boil water, how to sit in silence and simply breathe. An elderly monk, already very old and hunched over, visited the temple one day. Upon seeing him, Eien smiled with eyes full of years. "Peace is within you," he said, "and now you share it like the fragrance of a flower that doesn't seek to be noticed." Eien bowed his head, without words. That night, as he walked under the moon, he understood that peace was not something that could be taught, but something that was contagious, like a flame that lights another candle without losing its own fire. And so, in the stillness of that hidden valley, the young man who had once searched the entire world now lived in silence. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he had found everything he needed within himself. And there, where the world makes no noise, peace embraced him, without the need to search for it.